Okay, good morning, everybody. If you could all find your way to your seats, we have a busy schedule and we want to keep to it. And I've got a little bit of a cold, so I don't want to have to use my teacher voice, so to speak. All right, so welcome. All right, everyone take your seats, please. There's plenty of seats up front, although no one ever wants those seats. I promise no one up front in the front row will bite you or anything. All right, well, welcome to our final day of school for teachers. How about a round of applause for the teachers' final day? Woo! And our other instructional staff. And we're going to end our last day of school in Newington with a bang. And let me tell you that. Today we're going to talk about all things equity and all the successes that we have had this year. So first and foremost, I want to thank you. I want to thank my administrative team who were here by my side every step of the way as we've begun our journey towards equity in Newington. I don't want to leave anyone out, but I do want to thank Steve, Wendy, Kristen, Kim, Jay, Marlena, and Gerald for all their work. If I forgot anyone, I will thank them publicly in a minute. Without your leadership and support, none of this would have been possible today. To our instructional staff, and that includes teachers, paras, tutors, all of our folks who are here today, school counselors, psychologists, it would have been more than enough for me to say this year, let's just focus on accelerating learning and COVID recovery alone. However, as you will see today, we did not just focus on that. We strengthened our resolve to make equity a huge part of all we do. For your willingness to take this on behalf of our students, I could not be more grateful. Your work has already made an impact on our students, and the best is yet to come. Finally, I want to thank all those behind-the-scenes staff who, without their support, we could not have made this event possible after such an incredibly busy year. Tom Fravel and his custodial team, Mike Morgan and our security team, Sophie Lindsay, Anne Marie, Jacob Trowbridge, and our amazing tech team. How about a round of applause for everyone? So today, this will be very brief opening remarks because I want to launch into the good stuff. But this morning, while you're still here, we're going to go over the schedule. We're going to give out our Equity Award. Kristen Freeman will come up to do that. And we have a keynote speaker this morning, Dr. Yvonne Alston. Everyone today is going to kind of operate in a cohort. So these are they're listed right here in the PowerPoint, but also in the brochures that you might have grabbed on your way in. Now, for some reason we messed up, and someone with a last name that has 2 A's at the start of it wasn't included. Just follow Cohort 1. Kind of plug yourself in if there were some alphabetical mishaps, but hopefully that makes good sense. We use real names, but if your name kind of falls outside of those, just pop yourself in. It would be helpful to stick with your cohort, though, because we've balanced them out so that each cohort is approximately about 117 people. So there's a lot of people here today. The whole day will be based on rotations, and in your brochure that you got on the way in, as well as what's posted here right now, you'll notice that we have 4 rotations, and each cohort is assigned to a rotation at a given time. Cohorts, for example, rotation 1 is entitled Identity, Time, and Space, and Cohort 1 will go there first at 9:10. We will announce when it's time to leave your current location and go to your next station, so it'll be real easy for you. Laura Blanchard has agreed to do that for me, and hopefully that chart's fairly easy to follow, and again, it is in your brochure, so in case you forget, you will know. So, first rotation, Cohort Identity, Time, and Space. It will be located in the back of the cafeteria, and we have 3 individuals who will do what we call a TED Talk of sorts to talk about some of their work this year. We have Jonas Roberts, Space Identity and My Responsibility, Jill Hinton, More of Me, I like that. All the fans are here. And then a student from the class of 2022, Ariana Barnes, will talk about Who I Am. Woo! Rotation 2 is called Coffee Talk. And by the way, there is coffee there, so that's a plus. It will be located, let me get to the important stuff. Where's the coffee? The coffee will be in the hallway outside of the gymnasium. So whenever you're in the gymnasium for a session or in the cafeteria, coffee's right there. So it's right out there. Pour yourself a cup of joe. So rotation 2 is coffee talk in the gymnasium. We have folks in from our community who will talk about some of the work that they are doing with equity. And I'm very pleased to report that we have a very wide range of individuals. Gerald Hairston and I will be in that session throughout the day. There's actually a DJ in there as well for a little background music, and some real exciting opportunities to talk about some of the work done in our community and what it means for our schools. So you'll have the opportunity to meet these individuals, and they will be introduced in more detail during that session. Okay, oops. Did I skip over? Okay, so rotation number 3 is the showcase. The showcase is going to be located in the event center, but also in some of the rooms that are in front of the event center. So head in the general direction of the event center when it's your turn for showcase 3, and you will see these folks. Can someone click on the link showcase presenters? Thank you. And I'm just going to have, could you scroll down there? This is a list of all of our presenters and what they will be talking about. You will see them over in the event center. I will tell you 2 of the showcase have nobody there. They will just have displays, but most of them will have staff there to talk about their various efforts this year with equitable practices in PLCs, in classrooms, in a variety of settings. So that will be on display again in the event center and some surrounding areas right outside the event center. So you can see who's there. I think it's about 12 stations if I'm not mistaken. I'd show you the map, but I couldn't follow the map, but just head over to the event center and you will be fine. All right, thank you. We're going to go back to the slideshow now. And then our 4th rotation is a panel discussion. That'll be located here. So if you are going to rotation number 4 first, you don't have to go anywhere. You just stay right here. You will hear from Jason Lambert, Amy Inzero, Craig Guyette, Jess Slater, and the NHS Diversity Club students to talk about some of their work in leading for equity. So those are our 4 stations that you're going to rotate through. Then after that, we have some fun planned for you today. Probably, hopefully, the part everyone's most looking forward to. So at 1 o'clock, we have 5 food providers that'll be outside, right outside the gymnasium, and they're already there setting up as we speak. I won't list the food names, but they're going to be ready to rock and roll at 1 o'clock. Some of our staff are coming in from the schools at a slightly earlier time, but trust me, they're going to have more than enough food for everybody. And I think the titles of the food providers are pretty self-explanatory. Very important here, music from 1:30 to 2:30. We've got our own school district folks that are going to put some music together. I was told they're going to be jamming out tunes. I don't know what the tunes will be, but I've been told, I spoke to Dave Millardo yesterday, they should be awesome tunes. So those are going to be rocking and rolling from 1:30 to 2:30. That is also outside behind the gymnasium. Dunk the superintendent. Who put that up there? Yes, I thought you guys could poke a little fun at me today after the past couple of years. Maybe there'll be a few of you that will be enjoying this. I will be changing into more suitable attire, and out in the back of the gymnasium, there'll be a dunk tank. And for just standing about 100 feet away, if you can hit the target, you'll be good. Nobody's cheating to come up close, right? But no, have at it. Have fun. I do have one request. If you want to use the dunk tank, right outside the dunk tank on a wall near there is a poster about equity. It says, "We are committed to equity." If you wouldn't mind signing that, if you feel comfortable doing so, we've got permanent markers out there. That's the cost for admission to dunk me. But I think it'll be nice. We'll display it. I think it just kind of shows our resolve. It'll have some of the same insignias that you saw on my cover slide today. And then last but not least, we have some cornhole tournament opportunities for you. It'll be on the tennis courts. Chris Myers will be running that. And hopefully you did sign up for it yesterday. We kind of made the teams based on yesterday's signups. But we do have some valuable cash and prizes for the winning team. And I believe a few people have dressed up in their cornhole attire. I'm sure you can't guess possibly who dressed up in cornhole attire. Tara? All right. So without further ado, I would now like to bring up Miss Kristen Freeman. She will introduce our Equity Award. This is something that we put out a few months back, and she will present the winners. There are 2 winners, and she'll describe why they are winners. So I will turn the mic over to you, Miss Kristen.
Yes, those are the gifts right there. Sure. Tara is dressed and prepared for cornhole, just not dressed and prepared to pick up the award and the gift, but I think we're all set now. Good morning, everybody. First, a thank you to Dr. Brummett for allowing us to end our very challenging school year in such a unique and celebratory way, to just be able to come together and really recognize all of the hard work that all of you and all of us have done this year. So thank you to Dr. Brummett. Glenn Singleton, in his work, Courageous Conversations About Race, identifies 3 critical factors needed to overcome the opportunity gap: passion, practice, and persistence. Our passion must be great enough that it overcomes our resistance to change and challenges the status quo. Our practice must include the tenets of culturally relevant pedagogy. And our persistence must be born in that place deep within us that commits to doing the work, even when it's uncomfortable and even when it's messy. Passion, practice, and persistence, it sounds like such an easy formula for equity. But the challenge is that there's no PD that you're going to go to pick those up. There's not a book to read in order to figure out how to get those. And in fact, there's no step-by-step guide to becoming an equitable educator or an equitable school. But to start, you need to show up with the humility to say, I don't have the answers, but together we are going to figure it out. The recipients of the Equity Award have shown me what practice, passion, and persistence look like in both their PLCs and their classrooms, and you'll have a chance to see some of their work in the showcase portion in the event center. When we put together 2 high school teachers that share exactly 0 content, they were sort of forced to zoom out and ask themselves what it is that they have in common. They began first with a focus on social emotional learning, and their initial inquiry cycle actually brought about more questions than it did answers. Specifically, why did some students feel really strongly connected to the classroom community, but other students didn't? And specifically, why were the lines in those students' groups clearly drawn along race and culture? Seeing this difference really bothered these educators, and they knew that they wanted to make a change. And that's when they decided to invest in their practice. They studied themselves and examined how being white and growing up white means that they too have a culture that they bring, and many of us bring, to our classrooms and to our schools. And it's a classroom that works really, really well for a lot of our kids. And it's a culture that's not working well for some of our kids. In this moment of internal conflict, passion was ignited. They let go of defensiveness and put their guard down. With the support of instructional coach Christine Gomari, the PLC held 2 book studies this year, one on unconscious bias in schools and the other in Singleton's Courageous Conversations About Race. They unpacked how our good intentions are never enough. And when good intentions have a harmful impact, we must focus first on the impact we make and not the intentions. In their moments of learning about self, when shame and blame would typically come rushing in to fill that uncomfortable space, they instead chose accountability. This was a PLC where vulnerability, courage, and togetherness showed up so that they could stop learning how to do all of the things, and the learning shifted to who they are and how they need to be in order to make the change. And that's the persistence of equity work. They persisted through learning how to have conversations about race. They persisted by inviting the instructional coach into their classrooms and to collect data about which students received the most positive interactions and which students received few or none. Talk about vulnerability. Can you see how equity work, it's not transactional, it's transformational. And in order for it to be that, it must be relational. The educators of this PLC established and worked hard to build trust, compassion, connection, and accountability first with one another. And then throughout the year, they grew up together, welcoming deeper questions about themselves and their pedagogy. With passion, practice, and persistence, they learned how to become better teachers for one another, but most importantly, for our students who need us the most. I am so honored to present, along with Principal Tara Tigno and Assistant Principal Jamie Harris, the Newington Public Schools Equity Award for 2022 to Ms. Jen Freese and Mr. Christopher Kerr. Nope.
Thank you very much, Kristen, and our award winners, Christopher and Jen. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, with my glasses on. Yvonne Alston is an unapologetically authentic amplifier and advocate for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. She established Indelible Impressions Consulting, who we've been working with all year, to advance important conversations, education, and training to help organizations understand the importance of culture and its impact on the human experience. Her firm and team focus on centering the employee experience, amplifying personal and professional value, and inspiring hearts and minds as they challenge systems of inequity, champion dimensions of diversity, and drive inclusive practices holistically. It is my pleasure to introduce Yvonne Alston.
All right, good morning, everyone. All right. I'd like to thank Dr. Bramett, the Office of Equity and Inclusion, all NPS administrators and staff, and our Newington community. Can I get a round of applause for all of you? Excellent. So I'm really honored to be here today to speak to all of you for several reasons. As a town resident and parent of a former student, I am and have always been very committed to education, to helping others to move along on their journey in life and to achieve all that is possible for them. And so I was thinking quite deeply about the role of community and society in the education landscape, as well as the intersections and impacts upon the lives of students, parents, and community. There are those who are committed, like many of you, to creating the right foundations, working together to support strong, successful futures. This creates a strong, thriving community and the most ideal setting for all of us. However, there are always challenges to various types of environments into our society. One look at a Twitter feed or an Instagram post or the nightly news, and you will see exactly what I'm talking about. Ones with barriers that are in the way or gaps, like sidewalks and subway stations, gaps between where people are and where they're trying to go. As someone who worked and lived in New York City for a time, I took the subway just about every single day. And I was very cognizant and cautious about not standing too close to the space between the platform and the train. One unintended move or not paying attention to my surroundings, and the gap could do damage. It could be minor or devastating. Falling into the gap could cause irreparable harm to my future and to my life. And with this visual in mind, I was inspired to address how we all must mind the gaps. My first introduction to racial injustice and what I call and refer to commonly as existence gaps came at a young age. I saw family members and people in my neighborhood and community get treated differently because of their skin color, education level, or economic status. There was a notable gap between others and us. We, the Black people, the kids, not only appeared different visually, but there seemed to be expectations that were clearly different. And the gaps weren't fictitious. They weren't this conjuring of our minds. Too many of us recognized them, were frustrated by them, and commiserated about them. They were stated and acted upon to reflect the acknowledgments of difference, recognition between what people were supposed to do and be. It was presumed and understood that there were and would be difference in our experience, in the doors that would be either open or locked, that we would even get in close proximity to, the opportunities. There would be gaps between what others were told was achievable and our reality. And these weren't different in like exciting ways, right? Or welcoming ways, like something one waits in anticipation for. A new future or environment bubbling with yet realized expectations. No, our marked dissimilarities were not aligned with the dictionary definition of difference, the ways in which people or things are not the same. Our differences somehow equated to less, perhaps even shallow, in intelligence, in our future aspirations for our adulthood and our careers, for families, for our pursuit of livelihood and our purpose in life. Yes, many of us heard, saw, and felt the gaps, sometimes all three experiences at once, an assault on our senses and our sense of self. And no matter how we tried, it didn't seem like we could close the distance between our dreams and desires and expectations and bias. The ditch had been dug, and the gap was filled with things to validate that difference. Some statistic quoted, some verbalized and written confirmation with or without supporting information. The chasm between those who could accomplish much and see success and those who likely could not, would not, because of the gaps. You know the gaps I'm talking about. The achievement gap, the disparity in academic outcomes between lower income students, often people of color, non-native English speakers, and those living in rural communities versus the well-accessed and more affluent peers. The opportunity gap, designated by arbitrary circumstances in which people are born into, like race, ethnicity, zip code, and socioeconomic status. Aspects which determine some people's opportunities in life, rather than everyone having the accessibility and the opportunity to achieve the fullest potential within them and around them. And then there's the wealth gap that has set in motion a long-term limited financial trajectory for people of color across the US and abroad. A system meant to create gaps in how people earn and who could earn, who could obtain and pass along generational wealth to help ease the burdens of the next of kin and set generations, future generations, up for optimal success. There are just so many gaps. And while I personally experienced and lived in the midst of these gaps, I thought I had found ways to overcome them and thrive in spite of them. And when I was young, I sometimes even naively mocked the gaps. A tenacious teenager, I was determined to close the space between people's perceptions of me and the destiny I believed I could create, to close the gap of my family legacy, from the have-nots to the anything is possible. So early in adulthood, in my career, that is what I set out to do. And it seemed I had succeeded by most standards. College educated at Quinnipiac on an academic scholarship. I had closed the space between my last name and college education in my family. A stint at NASDAQ and Sullivan and Cromwell, places that weren't exactly welcoming or ready for someone who looked like me. And the bias abyss between us that I fought so hard to close. And I stuck to my guns over the years of a 22-year corporate career spanning industries, large companies, and consultancies. But even with all of those achievements and all the tenacity every single day, I found myself time and time again at the edge of yet another chasm. The space between my career achievements and having access to rooms where diversity of perspective and thought were needed but blatantly not valued or welcomed. It was in perspective of when a woman who looked like me should share space with top executives who didn't share any of my identities. Disparities in salary despite my years of education and expertise as my peers who appeared different ascended the ranks past me with less experience than me, less education than me. Gaps between when my voice could or should be heard and used to challenge the gaps. To say enough, because the fact is everyone knows that the gaps exist. And today, as a CEO of a diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging firm, I'm still at it, focused on closing the gaps, challenging the perceptions of some people and bringing to light the reality of many, standing in the gap for others, helping folks from all walks of life to stop letting their bias put people in boxes and limit their own experiences. Experiences of a beautiful life where diversity and difference are embraced and even desired. Alas, in 2022, though, we are still dealing with the gaps. So what about this generation and the next? Don't we finally owe it to them to bridge over these antiquated, gaping holes to ensure that they have what they need for safe passage of life, of liberty, to succeed and to thrive, to give people, parents, and everyone the support they need so that no one gets left behind somewhere in one of these gaps. And while all of this could have easily made me a cynic, I have chosen to use my lived experience and professional experience, just like all of you, to bridge the chasm that bias creates, to close the gaps of intercultural misinformation and misunderstandings, to inspire hearts and minds as you do every day together as the multidimensional members of our society, this town and this district, to create meaningful, sustainable change that can impact generations today, tomorrow, and for years to come. So together, I know that we are committed to minding the gaps. We will see them for what they are. We will not be afraid to acknowledge their existence. We will call a thing, and we will build bridges over them for every student, every parent, and every community member. But how? With every single one of you. By cultivating a strong, ongoing partnership, as you're already doing between school, family, and community, to ensure an equitable educational experience for all. By meeting the individual needs of NPS students, supporting their performance at levels we know they're capable of, while challenging everything they have yet to become and to achieve more well beyond their current status and into the dreamscape of everything that they can be. To support the social and emotional learning and academic growth of everyone. To develop deeper, authentic, and strong relationships with community to ensure supportive systems for all. And by challenging the barriers of inequity and exclusion at every turn to give the widest berth to possibility. By working together, we will mind and fill these gaps of difference with equity and with hope, with conviction and a steadfastness to build better today for all of our tomorrows. We will be minders and closers of the gaps. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. That was very inspirational. And today really is about celebrating the work we have done in a fairly short amount of time. There is still more work to be done, but I'm a big believer in always celebrate the progress because it's a journey, and the journey may take us a while, but I think it's very important to celebrate every step of the way. So congratulations to our equity winners. I'm just going to quickly review the schedule one more time, I hope. There it is. So again, at 9:10, we begin rotation 1, and you can kind of look across where your cohort's going to land in rotation 1, and so on and so forth. We do have a break at 10:55, And I did forget to mention that at lunchtime, you can eat outside, you can eat in the cafeteria, or the outdoor tables by the cafeteria. So you have choices. If you want to hear the music, though, you might want to be close to the back of the school, at the right outside the gymnasium, rather. So without further ado, I will send you off, and I look forward to a wonderful day. Thank you.